I'll show you a really easy way of removing the bottom of a door skin without messing up your door structure. That's the last thing you want to do, is kind of mangle up the structure, because then when you create your new patch and go to weld it in or purchase a replacement panel, you want that internal structure to be intact, unless of course it's rusted out. Hey guys, welcome back to Envision Prototypes. I'm Nick. Well, as you can see, we're making some fantastic progress on the 62 Cadillac. We've stripped the doors down to bare metal, found a few dings and dents, a couple patches. We've actually taken and shaved the door handles on this car. We're gonna have poppers, and that's gonna give this car a nice, long, sleek appearance. It's gonna be really clean, really smooth. Back here, we found a patch that they overlaid over the existing sheet metal, and that created a problem in itself, because although they corrected the hole, they added a whole bunch of filler to hide this patch. So when we got into the filler here, we were kind of expecting the worst, until we took the filler out and discovered that the sheet metal here is perfect, pristine, no rust, nothing. So the reason for all that filler again was to hide this patch. To fix this, we're going to take and cut this patch out, butt weld a new piece in place, metal finish it, eliminating the need for all that Bondo. You don't need all that. The bottoms of the doors, I did some investigative work, took a chisel, took out the seam sealer. There's a piece here, and most of it was falling off already. It's really brittle, really old, and that allowed water to get in and kind of swell the bottom of this door. It's more than normal. So that kind of gave me a kind of a hint as to what was going on. So by stripping the outside edge, I also confirmed that we have some holes coming through. So with those holes coming through, no matter how much you try to fix that with fillers and paint and whatever, it's always going to keep coming through, and you're not going to have a quality repair. So the only way to fix it, remove the bottom of that door. That'll take care of that patch over here. Now with this door, from what I saw back here, there's no point in stripping out all that filler. We've got the same problem going on over here. And actually the bottom of this door kicks out from a patch that's been putting through here. I've already fabricated a replacement panel. I started fabricating it. We still have to create a hem, create the ends that hook in. But before we do any of that, now that I have the shape, I can go ahead and remove the bottom of this door. We're gonna make a cut through here, and I'm gonna show you a really easy way of removing and separating the skin from the structure, because you don't wanna mangle your structure. If you have a replacement panel that you purchase, you just wanna clamp it back in place and weld it up and call it a day. You don't want to be trying to straighten the structure out, because then the door will never be the same again. Right now, that's a factory edge and it's nice and straight. And if you mangle that, you're going to stretch that edge, it's going to deform it, and you don't want that to happen. So let's get this car up in the air a little higher and get cutting. These doors are really heavy. Everything on this car is heavy. It's crazy. So you can see where the seam sealer was and all the rust underneath the seam sealer. So we'll have to address all that, grind it out, clean it out smooth. And then through here, it doesn't look bad, but this is where I started kind of opening things up, and it's just falling away. So that outside, that hem there, that's basically gone, rusted away. The structure so far looks good, but I don't know what it's going to look like on the inside. So when we get this opened up, we'll see that. Now, one thing for Cadillacs, they have a little tab that they rolled up and tacked to the bottom edge of the doors. On other cars, they just take and roll and pinch it and put a few tacks along here. But you see a little tab there? It's really small. I get the camera to focus. Come on. There we go. See that tab there? So we'll cut that off later on. But first, I just want to separate the bottom edge and just open things up. And we come to the front. You can see somebody created a patch, and they just rolled it under the bottom of the door and didn't even seam seal it, just left it open like that. And you know, it's accessible, you can get to it. If you seam seal it, you stand half a chance of this bottom kind of remaining intact for a little longer, but wouldn't take and remove all that stuff there and start fresh. Okay, let's get cutting. Now I'm not going to snap this door shut because I am not tall enough to unlatch it. Yep, that's all I can reach. Okay, Let's get the grinder, cut this off. Before you pull the grinder out and start cutting the bottoms of your doors off, you have to see where you're going to make your repairs and what body features you can use to your advantage. Our doors are really nice all the way down to about here, except for the ends, but we'll get to that in a moment. If we make a cut through here and try to make our joint in this area, not only will it be very difficult to clamp it, but we can't get a dolly in there. We have a structure in place and we just can't get the dolly positioned properly to plenish that weld. So that's not a very good spot to finish it. Better location will be about a 1/4 inch back from this feature line here. If we step back, make a cut, we can then remove this piece, bring our new panel up, scribe it, fit it to that little flange, tack it. I can plenish the tack because I can actually get a dolly in there, and then weld it up and finish it. And then once all that's done, then we'll take and address the ends, leaving us with a quality repair that leaves most of the door intact. Now, if the rust extended further up into the top, I would look at this feature line, drop down about 3/4 of an inch, and make my joint up there, utilizing this feature to help hold that curvature of the door. Now, it will deflect a lot more than it will here because this is a lot more prominent feature, but at least we have something to go by. If we put a cut through here and made our joint in this area in the middle of the door, it'd be a lot more difficult to work. It's doable, it can be done, but it's just a lot more challenging to restore that curvature. So anyway, let's make our cut and remove this bottom piece. Okay, so with that cut made all the way through, that's all loosened up. Now we have to take and separate the skin from the structure. To remove the skin from the structure, we're going to take and grind through the edge of the exterior skin all the way along, down to the structure and no more. So what I mean by that is, we have a piece of angle iron here, and say that's the thickness of the exterior sheet metal. That rolls in and then it rolls back up. If we grind through this leg here and cut through, that'll separate the skin from the hem. Check it out. You want to place the grinder flat along the bottom edge of the door, and just very slowly, carefully, while keeping an eye on it, grind away that material until you get through that hem. Pop open. Did you see that pop open? The tension it relieved? Let's see if we get this to focus. Okay, so you can see we're trying to get separation between the outside skin and the hem. And we're going to slowly work those two apart until the outside skin comes off. And there we go. Amazing what you find inside, wow. Don't even need a chisel, it just pops right open. Look at that. Now, you're gonna see all that rust just pour out.
You're gonna see all that rust just pour out.
Look at that. That's it. So, bottom of the door, that's from the inside. You can see most of it's nice. Most of it's solid. But then you got these spots here, about an inch from the bottom, which is what you would have seen at the back there. And that's starting to come through. And you'll never stop that. No matter what you do from the outside, that'll just keep coming through, coming through, coming through. So, and then like you see here, the end was gone. Somebody just put a patch over top of that, covered it up, Bondo, done. So now that we have a new piece fabricated, we'll clean all that up and get the new piece fitted. The dust is settled and everything within the door cavity is nice and clean now. Went through, sanded it, removed any rust, any loose paint, anything that was within there, cleaned it, washed it, and primered it. And now that the primer is dry, we can go about fitting this exterior panel. I took and scribed this top leg here so that matches the cut we made earlier. And what I have to determine is where to bend the bottom hem to the bottom of the door, since we are creating this piece from scratch. So I'm gonna get some clamps in here, clamp everything in place, put a few marks on the other side, and then go to the brake and give that a bend. That's opened up a little bit. I've bent it out so that I can push it up as I'm tacking it. So that's fine. So I'm going to put a clamp in here. Very, very good. It's extremely crucial at this point to make sure that you're perfectly lined up everywhere so that when you make that scribe, it's dead on. Okay, I need to do the front edge yet. Okay, not too bad. So I'm gonna go to the brake, give that a bend. We have to trim the ends up. I always make my panels a little bit oversized. You can see how much extra material we have. We would never roll that much over. The factory only had about 1/4 inch of material because the radius rolled over, so we have to mimic the same thing. And we'll get this shaped up and fitted in place. I just finished trimming up the bottom edge to within 1/2 inch, which is what we need to roll up inside. And I've also rolled the ends. Now, when I rolled this end here, it actually flattened the curvature out a little bit. But when I roll that all the way over, the curvature that we had initially for the bottom of the door will return. Same as this end here. This one's a little more flat because a little more of a leg that I rolled down. Let's get this clamped in place, see how it fits, and then we'll take it back off, prepare the back, prime it, and then get it installed for the final time. It's important to get the fitment right at this point because later on, once it's tacked in place, you don't want to be cutting tacks to pull it back out. Okay, that's looking good. Ah, much better. The radius is a bit soft here, but that'll get taken care of in a moment. I'm going to get a clamp in here. For me to check the other end, if I let this go, well, it's going to pose a problem. Okay. All right, everything's fitting up really, really well. I need to trim up a little bit of material in this area because it's kind of sitting up on top of the top door panel. Everywhere else, it's coming in, just sliding just past the skin. To create a proper butt weld, you need them perfectly aligned, in line with each other, not one higher than the other. Then at that point, we can prepare the back, prime it, and clamp it for the final time. I'm gonna check the hem on the bottom, and that's where it needs to be. All right. Now, before I go sanding this, I'm going to put 2 small tacks, close the door, and check the gap between the bottom of the door and the rocker panel. That's the other crucial dimension. You have to make sure that this is consistent with the other door. That's why I didn't cut the other door bottom off, because it serves as a reference point to get that nice straight line. That's sitting even better. I'm really happy with that. Okay. Let's put 2 small tacks on there. Okay, 1 small tack. That clamp shouldn't be in our way. I have to latch the door because otherwise I don't get a consistent bottom edge. As soon as I push that up into place, we've got the same gap as we do over there. So that's it. Good, good. Okay, primer this door bottom. Gonna let that dry for a bit. I'm gonna go clean up this area a little, sweep the floor up because it's really annoying to be walking around in this, and then we'll get into installing this door bottom. Okay, just double, triple, and quadruple checking everything. Make sure everything lines up. We've got the ends flushed up to where they are supposed to be, and I'm just checking the bottom gap here. And we are consistent with the rear one, so that's all good. I can pull this clamp off. I've got 3 tacks on here, holding this in place. There we go. You see this area right here? How this is kind of bellied out? I gave the panel a bit of outward bend, just so that I can push it in with my hand and align it, because with the door closed, I can't get a clamp in there. And then once everything's tacked and leveled out nicely, then I want to run 1 weld from front to back and weld it solid. And then the ends can be finalized. This has been flushed up with the rocker. We're gapped back here. There is a little bit of a point right here. That'll be rounded off once the panel is sitting where it needs to. Once this edge here is rolled where it needs to be and the bottom edge is hemmed up all the way, we're still sitting just a little bit over 90 degrees. So it hasn't been finished yet. That's why we can do that with it. As soon as all that's done, we'll take and radius that. Now, if you guys are welding in a patch panel for a door, it's really important that you get your series of tacks evenly spaced all the way down, making sure everything's aligned perfectly before you final weld it. When it's tacked, you can still work it. Once you weld it, it makes it a lot more difficult to work your joint. So make sure everything's aligned, tack it, work it, get it to where it needs to be, and then final weld it. And the other thing is controlling the heat. Don't put too much heat into this because funny things will happen. You keep the weld small but precise. If you're using a TIG, a little more forgiving with a MIG, you got to be really, really careful. So anyway, get your tacks in evenly spaced and then making sure that the joint is perfectly finished front to back, and then you can do your final weld. So I'm going to bring you guys in once I've welded this because you've seen me weld up panels before. It's a very time consuming process and you just take your time and just get it done right the first time. Because like I said, there's no going back. And then, well, if you mess up, you'll have to make a new patch panel and go higher. So another way of learning, but I don't think you want to do it twice. I don't. Let's get this welded up. Okay, so I've just started hemming the inside lip over, so that radius has returned back to what it needs to be. The bottom of the door lines up perfectly with the bottom of the rocker, so that's good. This bottom edge doesn't look too bad, a little tight in the middle, only because I've hemmed the ends to help pinch the panel in place. Now I'll get the camera around from the other way and I'll show you how we go about hemming the center area. But these gaps look pretty consistent, and that's what you want. You don't want one being up too high or one being down too low. They have to be just right. The Goldilocks gap, as I call it. Anyway, everything's been welded, metal finished. I got the dolly in from the top side. I've managed to get my arm in there with the window down. The window's only come down to about there, so that was good. And later on, we'll put it up to address that. But like I said, later on. Right now, I want to get this door finalized and basically get that hemmed, and then that'll be it. Afterwards, I'll get onto these 2 corners here and get them finished up. But yeah, it's looking good. and I'm quite pleased with it. I want to check one thing here, and that is the space between this ruler and the center of the door to see if there's any dip. And we are right on. That's really, really good. Yeah, I'm gonna get the slapper. I'm gonna bump this end just a little bit because when they put this patch in, they drove the top of that door down to get the proper alignment. So that has to be brought back up. Now that this is all tied back in, I can actually move the structure and the skin together as one, drive it up just a little bit. So let's do that right now. It's a lot of little things that have to be adjusted to make sure that everything lines up the way it needs to. So I'm just gonna block this in here and just drive that end up, and hopefully that'll correct that area there. It's pretty solid. I might need a bigger hammer. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's coming in really well. That's good. Okay, maybe a couple more. I don't want to drive it with just the hammer and create a dent in there. I want the whole area to come up. And then once that's level, then I can take that patch out, put the new one in. Ah, much better. Okay, so that is now level. Let's check this again. See the gap between the door and the ruler? It's bang on. It's kind of hard to hold both at the same time, but they come out really well. Okay, so let's hem the bottom of this door and get this wrapped up. You see what I was talking about in terms of that bottom edge? I pinned that end, I pinned that end. Now we're going to take and roll up the rest of this up all the way, and that'll suck the outside in and make that gap there consistent with the bottom of the door. I promise I'll get a new set of gloves after this door is done. All right, so we got the dolly. You want to back the dolly up on the outside of the skin, but you don't want to hit this side so hard that you dent the outside. It's a very gentle process. You bring it up a little bit at a time, and then you might make 2 or 3 or 4 passes before it's up all the way, but at least you won't be hitting it so hard that you dent the outside. And you can see here how much I rolled over just to capture the structure, and that's all you need. Once this is rolled up all the way, I'll take and tighten up everything else. Just a light tap, just bring it up. Come back to the beginning, do it again. Just check the outside, make sure there's no dents. Thank goodness. You do this long enough, you get a feel for it. But just want to make sure, because that would look bad, right? Let's tighten this up here. If this is open just a little bit, you can still move it around. But as soon as you pinch it down tight, that's it. It's locked in place. And what I'm doing now is just tipping the very top edge in a little bit. And that's it. That's all she wrote, guys. So, there we go. Nice consistent hem all the way through. I'm going to touch it up a little bit more. I have to grab another dolly, but essentially that's it. Let's close the door and see what it looks like. Wow. You don't want to get your fingers stuck in these doors. Okay. Just looking at the curvature here, for some reason, didn't notice it before, I guess maybe because that light, turn that around, but stay there. I have to bring this edge of the door outward because it doesn't match the curvature of this panel here. Okay. The curvature is quite strong here, it's out quite a bit, but right through here it's a bit flat, so we'll get that adjusted. Same thing over here. Who knows what they did, bump something just to drive it down for filler, but we'll take care of that. But overall, that gap is beautiful. I'm going to adjust one little spot in the middle here. Okay, so just like they had a few tabs underneath with spot welds to the structure, we'll put a few spot welds between the skin and the structure later on, just to make sure nothing moves. But that's it, guys. One door bottom installed with the proper curvature. Yes, I had a profile that I used to make sure that we were accurate from front to back. Let's check something here. Okay, that's looking good there. We're flush here, but this edge is up and we're flush here. It could be a factory thing too, because these are very complex panels. I gotta drink more milk to grow taller. Don't know, it bothers me because this door seems to have a bulge in this area. Not from us working here, but it just has a curvature this way. I wonder if this door looks the same. Yeah, these doors, they start off low, grow, and then dive back down like this. So you've got a space in here. Now we're gonna have to open the doors up, lower the car, and bring up this area here to gap this. But I don't think I'm gonna get into that today because that might be an episode just in itself. We've done it before on a 70 Camaro, gapping body panels. So if you're curious about that right away, go check that out. I need to think about this for at least 3 minutes. Put it down in the comments. Let us know if you want to see that or not. But aside from that, I'm going to call this a video, call this done. We've got the bottom installed and it came out quite nice. Let's get some light on this. I don't know if you guys can see that, it helps a little bit. So that came out really well. I'm really happy with that. And now we can go ahead and replace those corners. If you have any comments or questions about what you saw or a technique I was using, let me know. Put it down in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching. Take care, guys.